You want to find that drive and focus that has you locked in and on fire every single day? My book, The Mirror Motivation, will do it for you. I bought a copy for you. You take care of the shipping. The book is free. Click the link down there. I got you. Now tuned in to the only show on the planet where you will get the discipline that will move you to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence that encourages you, actually unlocks your ability to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, doing all that discipline, all that confidence, even when discipline and confidence have not yet produced the desired, expected results. And on top of all that, you're getting even more in this show. You're getting the personal initiative. This is the go-getter energy that moves any of us to make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. We put all of this together for you in one package. You don't do it yourself. This is not IKEA. You don't have to buy the big box and then put it together at home. We put it all together for you. And what you get is the mindset, the method, the podcast known as Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day. Welcome to the show. Today's topic is why we need the average people to remain average. Yes, you heard me correctly. We need the average people to remain average. See, I thought of this topic when I was thinking about or utilizing and thinking about social media and thinking about how much time, how much attention, how much energy by all of us in aggregate gets wasted there by otherwise promising individuals who find it easier to look at, analyze, talk about, comment on other people rather than pay attention to themselves. Now, I'm not saying that using social media is a bad thing. I use it. I look at things on social media, probably not as much as the average person, but as the average person, which is exactly what we're talking about here today. And the reason that I'm talking about this is because maybe some of you falsely believe that what I talk about here on the show is to turn average people into above average, or to turn them into exceptional, or to get them out of that average mindset and into something different. But I want to tell you that on the contrary, that's not what this show is about. That's not who this show is for. See, the average individuals are going to pretty much stay average. There's nothing that I could say on this show that's going to change their mind about that. Now, if you feel like you've been doing some average things and then you heard something that I said on this show, maybe one particular episode, maybe 10 of them, maybe 1,000 of them have started to change your actions and change your mindset, understand something. That it wasn't me that turned you from average to above average. You already had that within you. It's just you were making some bad decisions. You made some different decisions, and now you're getting different results. And now you're looking at your results, your actions, your life, your mindset, looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, man, I'm above average now. I appreciate, Dre, what you said for taking me from there to here. But understand, I didn't do it. You were already there. The spark, the seeds of it were already there. See, what I did with this podcast is just help water those seeds. The average people are not tuning into a show called Work on Your Game. It already sounds like effort, right? Just listen to that title. It already sounds like effort. This show is not for everybody. I've said that many times here today. Today's topic is why we, those of you who are listening to this right now, we need the average people to stay exactly where they are. And I'm going to explain to you exactly why that is, and why maybe if you've been putting too much time, effort, energy, by your own estimation, into trying to help some average people be anything but average, maybe you should stop doing that. And I'm going to make my argument today as to why that is. Point number one, today's topic again, is why we need the average people to remain average. Understand that in life, 10% of the population, of everybody out there, 10% of the population are people who will try to find something that will put them, as I like to say, on stage, quote unquote. 10% of people are going to make the effort and put the energy into, they're going to put some time into trying to figure out what they could do to put themselves on stage. And I'm going to explain what I mean by on stage. I don't mean being famous. I don't mean building a brand. I don't mean trying to win a trophy. I don't mean making yourself, making a spectacle of yourself in some way. And making a spectacle doesn't have to be a bad thing. It doesn't mean being on TV or having a big audience or being a professional speaker or anything that's going to have a whole bunch of people just coming to watch you do what you do. Everything I'm saying here today, when I talk about the stage and an audience, it is metaphorical. So maybe you do want to get on the stage. Maybe you do want to perform in front of a whole bunch of people. Maybe you do want a whole bunch of people to know your name, but maybe you don't. But you're looking to do something that's going to separate you from the masses, something that you can offer to the world, something that you're bringing to the table that otherwise would not be on the table, something that you deliver that the only place people can get it is from you. That's what I mean when I say on stage. All right, so not necessarily famous. It means doing something that would make you significant by your estimation and valuable to the world in such a way that it is difficult to replicate. That's what I mean when I say being on the stage. Now, of that 10% of people, as I told you, only 10% even try this. Of that 10%, 80% of that 10%, so 8% of the whole world will make the effort to figure out what's going to make them stand out, what's going to make me valuable, what will make me different from everybody else in the world. 8% of the world will try and they'll fail. They'll try to find what it is. They'll try and they can't find it. They'll try, they find it, then they start working on it and they just can't do it. They try, they find it, they start working on it. They can do it a little bit, but they don't stick to it. They don't keep putting in the effort. And maybe they face some setbacks and they stop trying, or maybe they just stop being disciplined and stop showing up every day to do the work. Maybe they're not confident enough to put themselves out there boldly. Maybe because the discipline and confidence they've been exerting has not yet produced the desired result, so they decide to just give up because they lack mental toughness. And maybe they have all of that, yet they have no personal initiative to get up off their asses and get off the couch. For whatever reason, of that 10% of people who do make the effort to become significant, to get themselves, quote, on stage, close quote, 80% of that 10% doesn't make it there. They don't get there. Not because they didn't try. They just came up short. See, I want you to understand that while your teachers and your parents and your coaches and maybe myriad other motivational people out there, so to speak, may tell you that if you're in this small percentage of people, this may not be the first time you ever heard someone say that only a small percentage of the population is even trying to be exceptional. I may not be the first person to ever tell you that. Maybe I am. But even though you are making the effort to step above the masses of the average people and try to make yourself exceptional, try to make yourself stand out, that does not mean you're going to make it. It doesn't mean it's going to work. It does not mean you will succeed at doing so. You could still try to separate yourself from the masses and come up short of doing so. Of the 10% who try, 8% out of that 10% failed. 2%, they try and they figure it out. 2% of the entire population of the world tries to do something that will separate them from the average, from everybody else, something that would make them significant, something that would add immense value to the world, from which the world can only get it from that person. 2% of people make the effort and they succeed at doing so. All the impact of the world, all the change in the world, all the innovations, everything that moves us forward in life comes from this 2% group. 100% of it comes from the ideas, let's say, of the 2% group. And then they go find 8%ers and the 90%ers to help them out. They go. Any of you ever heard someone say that if you don't have a dream or a plan for your life, then someone else has a dream or plan and they will employ you to help them achieve it? You ever heard that saying? If you haven't, you have now. Just quote me when you use it. This is how all impact, all change, all forward progress happens. 2% figure it out, and then they go grab the 8%ers and the 90%ers to help them do the rest. Only 2% of all people, I'm talking about everybody on the planet, all right, regardless of age, race, gender, nationality, background, who your parents were, all of that, 2%. The other 90% of people, that 90% that I haven't mentioned yet, as we know 8% try and fail, 2% make it. The 90% that I have not mentioned, the average, these are the people who, they don't even want to know what it could possibly be for them. These are people who don't even want to know what their potential is to be great. They don't want to know what they could possibly achieve if, because they don't want to know about that if. They don't want to hear about that if. You understand? You ever known somebody who had the potential to be really good at something and you saw it? You saw their potential. You see some natural ability they have. You see some possibility that is in front of them. And you're like, yo, if you were to just do this, this, and this, or just do these things right here, you could become great at this. You could get this result, this result, this result. And the person doesn't really want to hear you say that, not because they don't want to know about the great things they could get. They just don't want to know about that other part. That other part that says, the part that comes after the if. See, if someone says to you, hey, you could be great at basketball if, and then usually what follows that if is what? Those of you who have had this conversation with someone, what follows that if? Usually it's something about work, effort, energy, discipline, mental toughness, showing up consistently, doing things that most people don't want to do. And guess what? 90% of people, usually the most is somewhere in that 90%. All right, most people is more than half. All right, and I said 90, all right, that's way more than 50, right? So when the people who you've ever come across who have the potential to be really good at something, or the potential, it's not that they are guaranteed that they would get it, but they have the potential to be really good at something, to really have an impact somewhere in the world. The reason why they don't want to even know about it is because they're smart enough. See, you understand? People aren't stupid. Most people are relatively, anyone who could listen to the words that I'm saying right now, they're relatively smart. All right, you can read and write. I mean, you have some intelligence, you have the ability to comprehend, right? They understand that in order to get something, they had to do something. Most people who are they have full function of their brain, they understand this. In order to get some kind of result, there's some kind of effort that's going to have to go into it. Most people understand that you're not going to get something for nothing in life. And anyone you see trying to get something for nothing, they know that that's not how the formula works. They're just thinking maybe I'll be one of the lucky ones who can get away with it, and they usually end up being wrong. Everybody knows they got to give something to get something. So whenever you're talking to somebody about all the things that they could achieve if they were willing to ... whatever the effort is that they would have to put in, the reason why they don't want to hear about any of it is because they understand as soon as you tell them what they would have to do in order to get it, that reality is going to be smacking them in the face. That, damn, I could have these things, but I'm just not willing to put in the work. Some people just don't want to do the work. When I was in high school, my 1 year on the varsity basketball team, I had a teammate that was a junior, and I had another teammate who was a senior, and these two guys knew each other, the junior and the senior. Now, the junior was a really talented player. He was probably, by my estimation, he was the most talented player on the team. This dude was like 6'5". He was skinny as hell, but he was 6'5" and long, really long arms, long legs. The only weakness he had in his game was that he was just physically weak, and mentally he had some weaknesses. But as far as physical tools, he was physically weak because he was so damn skinny. But other than that, this dude could dribble, he could cross you over, he could dunk on you, he could score out of the post, he had pretty good footwork, he could shoot from the outside. This dude had every physical tool you would want in a basketball player. And he had the size, all of it. And he was a junior, so he had some time to kind of groom his game and become something. And this senior knew this dude. They knew each other outside of school. They had played on some teams together outside of school. So this senior, his name was Will. I'll tell you his name. Now, Will, the senior, one day looked at the junior player. I'm not going to say this guy's name. And he said to him, man, sometimes you make me mad. And the junior looked at him with this puzzled look. He was like, what do you mean how am I making you mad? Because this junior player, let me tell you one more thing about him before I tell you the rest of the story. This guy was like the class clown type of individual. Really funny guy, always telling jokes, always saying something about somebody in a jokeful type of way. He had our whole team was doing that during my 1 year on the varsity, just telling jokes about each other, talking shit to each other in a playful type of way. And it was every single day, every practice, every game, every bus ride, every McDonald's trip after practice. We were doing this every day, and this guy was the ringleader, this junior, because this dude was just a funny dude. He's the kind of guy that just walks in a room. As soon as he walks in a room, you start laughing because you know he's going to say or do something funny. That's the kind of dude he was. Class clown type of individual. So, and because he was a class clown, he didn't take basketball as seriously as he needed to. So this senior, Will, looked at him and said, "You're making me mad." And the junior said, "Why?" And Will explained what I just explained. He said, "Man, because you want to be the clown and you have all the tools." He was like, "Dude, you got all the tools, but you just don't want to do the work. You got every tool necessary to be good at ball, but you don't want to do the work." And it was quiet for a moment because I think we were walking at the time, or maybe we were in a locker room. I can't remember. But after the senior, Will, said this to the junior, the whole room just went quiet. Nobody said anything for a few seconds because everyone was waiting to see what this junior would say. Because this guy is known, again, he's the class clown, always joking around. So now we're having a serious moment, and he's been challenged directly by a senior whom he respects. So everyone's quiet just to see what he's going to say back. Is he going to make a joke about it? Is he going to take it serious? Is he going to say something? Is he going to do something? What's going to happen? Finally, the junior speaks. You know what he said? He said, "You know what? Sometimes I just don't feel like doing that shit." And he laughed, and then everybody else laughed, and the senior just rolled his eyes and just turned away from him. And then junior just kept on being the class clown as he already was. I'm telling you all of that to tell you this. People don't want to hear about what they could do because they already know what they would have to give to get it, and they've already decided that they don't want to make that investment. So you telling them is not news to them. When you tell somebody how great they could be if, and then you filling that if with all the stuff they could do, understand that you're not the first person to tell them that. They probably told themselves that already. They have just made the decision, and it is their decision that they don't want to do the work. And again, every one of us has free will. If you're listening to this, you have free will. We all have the choice of what we're going to do or not going to do in our lives. And choosing to do nothing is a choice. Not making a decision is a decision. They don't want to know about it. They never seek, they never find. And this 90% that I'm talking about here, they make up what we call the masses, quote unquote, the masses. the bottom of the pyramid. And everybody knows what a pyramid looks like, right? The bottom of the pyramid is the part that is the widest part. It has the most surface area. It holds the most people. Bottom of the pyramid is where the average people live. These are the people who end up in the audience, metaphorically speaking, while the 10%ers are aiming to get on the stage. Not all of them make it, but they're trying to. The 90%ers are people who find themselves a comfortable seat in the audience. They never even attempt to approach the stage. They're comfortable sitting where they're sitting at the bottom of that pyramid. So now that we got that out the way, let's move on to point number 2. Today's topic is why we need the average to remain the average. So now that you understand exactly who the average are and why they are the average, understand this. In life, every single one of us is in one of 2 categories. Generally speaking, we are either the person who is in the audience watching those people who are making an impact, watching those people who are chasing after their destiny. Some of them catch it, some of them don't. Or we're the person who's being talked about. We're the person who's being watched. We're the person who's on the stage, or the person who's trying to get to the stage, making our effort to get to the stage. There's a reason why I told you about that 8% who tries and comes up short. Because right now, I would guess that there's somebody listening to this who right at this moment, you're in that 8%. You're trying to get to the stage, but you're not there yet. You haven't necessarily failed, but you haven't gotten there yet. So you're in the process. Right now, we don't know what the final story is going to be on you. Because you've only failed when you quit, as they say, right? So right now, you're somewhere in between. You're in the 10% guaranteed because you're not just sitting in the audience comfortable and just going to stay there. I know you're not that. I would guess that 100% of people who listen to a show like this are in that group. But let's say 95%. Maybe 5% of you are just testing this out and saying, let me see what this dude's talking about and whether he's speaking my language or not. So I'm going to say 95% of you are at least in the 10%. We just don't know if you're going to be in that 2% who made it or the 8% who came up short. But it's really up to you whether you make it or not. Because again, as long as you keep trying, nobody can say you came up short. You're still trying. So I'm saying all of that to say, I gave you that 8% and 2% breakdown. Made sure I pointed that out because while you're on that journey to get up to the stage, but you haven't made it yet, here's what's going to happen. And you probably have had this happen already. You may be going through it right now. Is that some of those people who are sitting in the audience who have no intention of trying to get a spot on the stage, who are not even trying to get out of their seat in the audience. They're comfortable right where they are. They are watching you try to get on the stage and not there yet. They're watching you try to get on the stage and see that you have not yet made it to the stage. They see how far away you are from the stage. They see the last time you tried to get on the stage and you were turned down. They see the last time you tried to get on the stage and somebody pushed you off. They see the last time you tried to get on the stage and nobody returned your phone call or your email. And they're looking at you as a validation. The fact that you are trying for the stage but have not yet made it to the stage is validation to the people in the audience that they were right to never try. So then you may get from these people, these audience members, you may get ridicule. You may have them, I guess what we call hating on you. It's a phrase that I don't use too often, but it may apply here. Hating on you because they just don't want to see you succeed, not because they want you to fail, but because your success represents their lack of success. Your efforts represent their lack of efforts. And understand this. See, when you're trying to achieve something, but you haven't yet achieved it, the people who didn't try, they want that achievement secretly, they won't talk about it, but they didn't try to get it. When they see you try and fail, it validates to them that they were right to never try. And they can look at you and say, well, look, I didn't try at all. You tried, but neither one of us made it. So I won because I didn't put the effort out. You put all that effort out and still didn't get it. I didn't put any effort out and still didn't get it. So we still in the same spot. Maybe you've heard something along these lines from some of the people who are sitting in the audience of life to this point. I'm sure you have. I can almost 100% guarantee that you've heard this if you're in that 8% right now. Meaning you're angling to get to that stage area, wherever that is for you, but you haven't yet made it. The people in the audience are watching you and hoping that you don't, not because they have a problem with you personally. They don't really care about you. It's really a representation of them. If you make it, then they won't be able to sleep. They're going to have to look at themselves in the mirror and say, damn, that person put the effort in and they actually made it. Now, what the hell am I doing? That's why they don't want you to make it. Most of us, actually not most of us, but all of us, we all reside predominantly either on the stage or in the audience, or either heading towards the stage or in the audience. We're either in the 90% or the 10%. You usually don't go back and forth. You pick one and you stay there. And you know, just from what I've said so far today, you know which group you're in already without me saying anything else. You don't even have to think too hard about this one. The stage again, are the people in life who do things that end up getting talked about. And again, that doesn't mean being famous. And when I say talked about, you don't have to be coming up on the first page of Google or something like that, or be on CNN. I'm talking about in your space, in your environment, and whatever it is you're doing, whether that be a small group at your school, whether it be in the whole world, whether it be in business, sports, whatever it is that you're doing, you're a person that people are coming to see what you do. They've heard about you, and they come to experience what you have going on or find out what you're doing. That's the stage. Again, the stage could be in front of an audience of 20 people, could be an audience of 20 million. But again, you know whether you're in the 90% or the 10%. I'm going to assume that most of the people listening to a podcast called Work on Your Game are in the 90%. Point number 3. Today's topic is why we need the average people to remain average. When you understand the philosophy of the stage and the audience that I've already explained so far pretty thoroughly. But this is all about supply and demand. Any of you have studied anything about economics, you understand the supply and demand curve. If you do not understand the supply and demand curve, I suggest you look up some podcasts, some blog posts, and just learn the basics of supply and demand, because it's basically how all of life works. That's why you need to understand it, not because you're going to become an economist. The value of something goes up when the supply is scarce. The less available something is, the more valuable it becomes. Knowing this, the stage, again, there's a metaphor that I'm giving you here today. The stage is what it is for one particular reason. It's because there are so few people who even want to step onto it. That's what makes the stage valuable. Not that it's elevated above the audience. Not that it comes with certain perks. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. What makes the stage valuable is the fact that 90% of people will never even try to get on it. Since only 10% of the whole population is even trying to get to the stage, just by that definition alone, the stage is a valuable commodity to get to. Just because only 10% of people want it. And when I say stepping onto the stage, I'm talking about finding your purpose, tapping into your potential, putting effort into getting better at anything. You know that most people don't even want to get better at anything? They just want to get to a comfortable spot and they want to just stay right where they are. They want to maintain the status quo. I did an episode on this early in the Work on Your Game podcast, probably somewhere in the first 100 episodes. I told you those who are angling to maintain the status quo are losers. The status quo is for losers. And I'm explaining to you briefly why. It's because the world is always moving. The world is literally moving at all times. If you're trying to maintain neutrality and stay in the same spot that you're in and keep everything as is while the world is moving, and you can't fight that science of the world moving, then by default you are losing, because you're standing still while the world is moving forward. So by default, if you're trying to maintain the status quo, you're a loser. Now that you understand that. Most people want to maintain the status quo. Most people want to sit in the audience and be part of the 90%. See, if I wanted a 100 times larger audience for this podcast, this Work on Your Game podcast, you know what I would do? I would either create a brand new podcast, or I would change the name of this podcast and stop using the word work in the title. If I just took the word work out of the title of this podcast, I had to change it up a little bit. On Your Game maybe that would make sense. But I can make a new podcast and not use the word work. I would attract a whole lot more of the masses, a whole lot more than 90% immediately. You know why? Not because the topic changed, not because anything about me changed, not because the message changed, just because I took the word work out of it. 90% of people don't want to do any work. They want to do as little work as possible and stay exactly where they are because they're comfortable with that. Or they want to get comfortable with that. They may not be comfortable yet, but they're conditioning themselves to be so. You're a stage individual. If you are a stage individual, you're in that top 10% who is at least trying to get to the stage. Maybe you're so far away from it you can barely see it right now, but you know you're not sitting in the audience. You're in that 10%, which I'm assuming that you are since you're listening. You've listened to 20 plus minutes of this episode. I'm assuming you're in that 10%. Understand something. If you think you're in a very crowded field, you think there are so many people trying to do the same thing that you're doing and you're trying to cut through and get your attention, maybe you are. I'm not here to tell you that you're not, but I want you to understand that in the grand scheme of things, in the big picture, you are not in a crowded field. It is not crowded at all. Because only 2% of the population is even thinking about, let's say 10%. Anywhere from 2 to 10% is even thinking about doing something that would be competing with you. You're only competing with a very small percentage of the population, even though that small percentage may be a whole lot of people. You're only competing with the 10%ers. So there's a whole lot of people just sitting down, not doing anything. So while that may not give you much solace if you've been trying really hard right now and you've just faced another setback and things are still not working for you, understand that you're already doing something that 90% of people ain't never going to even try, and they don't even want to know about it, because then they'll be responsible for the information. Point number 4. Today's topic is why we need the average people to remain average. Understand that everything I'm saying here today, this is not a motivational speech. I don't consider myself a motivational speaker. You may take this as motivation, but I'm not doing it to motivate you. I personally believe motivation is for amateurs. If you need to be motivated, you're not a pro. Pros need to show up every day even when they're not motivated. That's a different topic. But I'm not here to hype up the masses to join the 10%. We need the masses, whoever's in that 90%, we need them to stay exactly where they are, comfortable in those seats. And we're not going to hold them back. We're not going to force them to stay in their seats, but we're not going to waste energy trying to move them out of their seats either. You understand what I'm saying? I'm not going to go up to people sitting in the audience and say, hey, why don't you come and get on this stage? Because you can get this, this, and this. Look at all these things that you can get from trying to get to the stage. I'm not going to put my energy into doing that. I'm not going to force them to stay in the seat. If they want to get up, they can. I'm not going to stop them. But I'm also not going to encourage them. I'm not going to try to motivate or inspire them to get up out of their seats. And I'm explaining to you why. Because of supply and demand curve. The value of the stage exists in the fact that all these people are sitting in the audience. That's what makes the stage valuable. Any of you ever stood on the stage before and did any type of performance, or maybe you gave a talk, maybe you accepted an award, maybe you graduated from middle school? Any of you ever been on a stage? If you've been on a stage, I'm talking literally right now. This is not the metaphor. If you have literally been on a stage before in life, what makes the stage so special? You tell me. What makes it special to be on the stage? The stage is only special because of all those seats that had people in them. If you stepped on a stage and there's nobody in the audience, is the stage that valuable? It's not as exciting if you step on a stage and the room is empty. You step on a stage in an empty room, who cares? If you know that you're doing a live stream on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, anywhere you could do a live stream. LinkedIn got live streaming now. If you do a live stream and you see the number of people who are watching that live stream, you know just by that number how many people are in the audience watching you. And I'm not saying if you watch a live stream that you're an audience member, but follow what I'm saying here. Just at least temporarily, you're a member of the audience for that person. When you see that there are 1,000 people listening to your live stream or watching your video or downloading your podcast, you're standing on the stage. What makes it special is the fact that all those people are paying attention to you, at least right there in that moment. That's what makes the stage special. That's what the supply and demand curve does when it comes to the stage. The stage wouldn't be the stage if everybody was standing on it, because then we wouldn't have anybody to perform for. If everybody's on the stage, who are we performing for? Nobody. Nobody's there to watch it. If a tree falls in the forest and nobody's there to hear it, it doesn't make a sound. To me, it does not make a sound. Sound exists when somebody hears it. If nobody hears it, there's no sound. The value of the stage is the fact that all those people are sitting there waiting for somebody to come across the stage and do something. They need something to watch. It's not like they can watch themselves, that 90% group. I once heard an athlete say that winning a trophy in sports is not about me winning, it's about everybody else losing. That's a super competitive, very, I guess, testosterone-driven masculine thing to say. Not to say that a woman can't feel the exact same way, but the point is this: we need the masses to exist so that we have an audience to perform for. Those of you who are trying to get on the stage, you don't want to do all that fighting and efforting and put all that time and work in to get to the stage, and then you stand on the stage and realize there's nobody there to watch you because you've hyped everybody else up to try to get on the stage. No, let them stay in their seats. Everyone has free will, as I said already. Everyone has free will. The same free will that moves you to try to get on the stage is the exact same free will that keeps them sitting in their seats. True or not true? We need an audience to perform for. We need masses to watch us. We need the masses, the average, to talk about us. If everybody was in the 2%, performing would be a whole lot harder, because not too many people are going to sit and watch and talk about you. If you're in that 2% or even in the 10% who is trying to get somewhere and trying to do something, you're not spending a whole lot of time sitting around watching what everybody else is doing. Or any time that you do spend doing that, you're doing it only so you can recharge your own batteries so you can get back to your own mission. True or not true? So if everybody was in that 10% trying to get on the stage will have no value. The supply and demand curve will shift. I believe it would be to the left, if I had that right, economists who are listening. it wouldn't be valuable anymore because there's nobody watching. There's no demand. So we would be oversupplied. There would be a surplus. When there's a surplus of stuff in economically speaking, the prices go down, meaning the value goes down. It's not worth as much because it's too available. That's as far as I'm gonna go as far as economics go here. You need to read a book or take a class if you want to learn more. But let's recap today's topic, which is why we need the average people to remain as average as they are. I thought of this again when I was looking at social media, but this is not about social media. See, we didn't really talk about social media here today. It's about people who are putting too much effort, energy, attention, focus, time, money, 5 forms of investment into things that if they took those same investments, those same resources and put them into themselves, they could be the ones being watched instead of being in the audience watching. But again, everybody has their own choice. Point number 1, in life, 10% of people are trying to find what will put them on the stage, metaphorically speaking. Doesn't mean famous. It means finding what will make you significant, make you valuable, help you reach your potential. 8% of that 10% are not going to make it. Out of that 10%, 8% are not going to make it to the stage, but they're trying. Or they haven't made it yet is the better way of saying it, but they're still trying. 2% make it to the stage. This is where the impact comes from in life. The 2%ers who actually make it to the stage, then they go grab the rest of the people, the other 98%, to help them make that stage nice and pretty. The other 90% of people, they don't want to know what it is for them. They never seek and they never find. And 90% of people who never try to get to the stage, they make up what we call the masses, the bottom of the pyramid, the average, the audience. Point number 2. In life, you are in one of 2 categories. You're either on the stage, or at least angling for the stage rather, or you're in the audience. And you know exactly which category you're in. You don't have to think about it. There's no analysis that you had to do to figure it out. You know, are you trying to get somewhere or are you sitting in the crowd watching? Point number 3. Here's the philosophy of the stage and the audience. It's all about supply and demand. The value of something goes up when its availability is scarce. The stage is what it is because so few people ever want to step onto it. Meaning, few people want to find their purpose. Few people want to tap into their potential. Few people want to put real effort into getting better at anything. Most people want to stay exactly where they are and maintain the status quo. That's why most people are losers. If you're trying to stay in the same spot as the world is moving, you are losing. Everyone understands that, right? Just logically speaking, that's how you become a loser. If I wanted a 100 times larger audience, I would just stop using the word work in the title of this podcast, and all of a sudden, a lot of the masses would be attracted to me simply because games seem fun. Games don't seem like effort, but work, that's already turning those 90%ers away immediately as soon as they hear the title of the show. If you're a stage person and you think you're in a crowded field, maybe you are, but in the grand scheme of things, you're not in a crowded field. You're only going against 10% of the population. The other 90% is sitting on the side and want nothing to do with what you're doing. Point number 4. Everything I'm saying here today, everything I say any day on this show is not a motivational speech. I'm not here to hype up the masses to join the 10%. And if you are in the 10%, you better stop needing motivation to do what you need to do, because in life, you become a professional at anything. Professional plumber, professional contractor, professional architect, professional teacher, professional athlete. There are days you will not be motivated at all. There are days you will be demotivated, and you still better show up and do your job. Otherwise, you will be out of a job. And if you know a professional, any professionals in your life, ask them if what I just said is true or not. They will confirm it. Understand something. We need the average to stay exactly where they are. That's why I'm not here to motivate the average. This show is not for everybody. We're not going to hold the average back and tell them they have to stay average. If they choose to get up and go for the stage, they can. But the same free will that led you to try to get to the stage is the exact same free will that leads them to stay sitting in that damn seat. Is this true or is this not? Why is this? This is supply and demand. Now, we're not wasting time trying to motivate the masses. The value of the stage is in the fact that everybody else is in the audience. You ever stepped on the stage and there was nobody in the audience? That all the energy is gone. There's no energy in being on the stage if nobody's in the audience. What makes the stage valuable is the fact that all those people came to sit there and watch you on that stage. So you don't want everybody else going for the stage, because then the stage doesn't matter anymore. There's a surplus and the value of it goes down. We need the masses to exist so we have an audience to perform for, people to watch us, people to talk about us. If everybody was trying to perform, not too many people are going to be sitting in the crowd watching, because listen, would you? Now, in workonmygame.com/motivation, you can get my book, The Mirror of Motivation. It is the self-guide to self-discipline. I wrote this book for you to light that fire within you. The fire already is there. You're not creating the fire, you're just relighting the fire. Maybe the flame just went out. You can relight that match by going to workonmygame.com/motivation. Get the Mirror Motivation. Oh, the reason why I'm telling you to get this book is it's free. I already paid for the book. The physical book is paid for. I'm shipping it worldwide. You have an address, you can get the book. All you do is take care of the shipping. I'm shipping it to you wherever you are, so you can light that fire and you can get to the stage where you belong, so the masses can watch you. They're waiting for the show to start. Work on your game. Dre, all